Hello campers, I am your host Cryptid. I welcome you back to the cabin, and I hope you could join me by today's fire for a new video. We have a story called Tailypo. Now, Tailypo is a cryptid, but it also has a story tied to it. And it was a story I heard in my childhood, brought by one of my family members from a deck of cards we had that had scary stories on them. Now, Tailypo is a creature of North American folklore, and it was told, or particularly found to be told in Appalachia, and its other names include Tailybone, Tailybones, Tailbones, Tailytail, and Tailypo. Tailypo, typically it's called Tailypo. The creature itself, I've included some pictures here so you guys can see that. It's often described as dog-sized, with pointed ears, a long tail, and yellow or red eyes. Now, there's different stories that depict the Tailypo and its appearances, and even how it goes about in the story or the tale, but relatively remains the same upon being dog-sized. It is actually depicted, I think, in some other films. I think there was a few short films. One was in 2015, I believe, and it might have been a full-length movie, I don't recall. But, yeah. So, in the story, Tailypo. There was an old man who lived alone in the middle of the forest. He must have been 60 years old, but nobody knew his real name. Most folks just called him Old Jake. He had 3 loyal hunting dogs that kept him company on the long, lonely nights. Their names were I Know, You Know, and Calico. He lived in an old cabin he had built himself way back in the deep, dark woods. It wasn't very big, but it was just enough for him and his dogs. The cabin only had one room in it, and that was his bedroom, his living room, his dining room, and his kitchen, too. At the end of the room, there was a nice big open fireplace, where he could cook his supper and warm his bones on the cold winter nights. Old Jake loved hunting, fishing, and the great outdoors. He had a little garden where he planted vegetables. He would go out every day to hunt for rabbits and fish. During the warm months, there was more than enough food to go around, but in the colder months it was hard to keep his belly full. One cold winter night, the old man's stomach was grumbling. There was nothing to eat in the cupboards but a few moldy potatoes. He stoked the fire in the fireplace to keep the cabin warm and went to bed. He was just about to fall asleep when he heard something in the room. He opened his eyes, just in time to see a shadow creeping again across the wall. When he sat up in bed and peered into the darkness, his eyes grew wide in terror. Sitting across the room from him was the weirdest looking creature he had ever seen. It was short, stubby, with pointed ears, bright yellow eyes that seemed to burn with some strange fire. Its body was covered in black fur, and it had big, sharp claws and a long, thick tail. For a moment Jake sat there, frozen in fear, stared at the hideous creature and stared back at him. Then, quick as a flash, he grabbed his hunting knife and lunged at the thing. It sprang up and scurried out the hole it had clawed in the cabin wall. The thing was fast, but so was Jake. A split second before it escaped, he brought his knife down squarely on its big tail, cut it off. The creature let out a horrible screech and disappeared into the night. Old Jake was left standing there with a long, thick tail in one hand and a bloody knife in the other. Jake was about to throw the tail outside when his stomach started rumbling again. So he took the tail, cleaned it, tasted, and cooked it for his supper. It tasted a bit strange, but there was a lot of it. It was very chewy. In fact, it kind of tasted like chicken. With his stomach full, Old Jake plugged up the hole in the cabin wall with some old rags and newspapers. Then he got back into bed, drifted off to sleep. He hadn't been asleep very long before he was awakened by a strange noise. It sounded like something trying to scratch its way into the cabin. The old man thought that if he stayed really quiet, the thing might go away. He could hear it scratch, scratch, scratch. Then a strange voice outside hissed,
Tailypo, Tailypo, I want my Tailypo.
He thought he must be imagining things. Then he heard again,
Tailypo, Tailypo, I Tailypo.
Old Jake jumped out of bed, ran to the front door and threw it open. He called out to his dogs, "I know, you know, Calico, get over here." Dogs, they came tearing up to the cabin and ran around, sniffing and snarling. Couldn't find a thing. Jake shrugged his shoulders and went back to bed again. He was just about to drift off to sleep when he heard the noise again. This time the scratching sounded like it was at the window. Whatever it was really wanted to get in. But the scratching seemed to be on two walls at one time. Then he heard the strange voice again. This time hissed a little louder.
Tailypo, Tailypo, where's my Tailypo?
Old Jake, who wasn't one to frighten easily, was getting a little shaky. This was getting really weird. So he eased to the window and called, "I know, you know. Calico, come here. Over and see what this scratching is on my house." 3 dogs bounded up to the porch, sniffed around, barked and sniffed, but they never found anything at all. Jake decided to stay out for the rest of the night, protect himself, his dogs, and his little cabin. So he pulled a chair next to the fireplace, grabbed a blanket from his bed, settled for the rest of the night. Sleep soon overtook him, and once again he dozed off. It was almost dawn when Jake woke up with a start. The sound of scratching seemed to reverberate from every area of the cabin. Jake searched frantically for his axe, his rifle, or something to defend himself with. But he was so frightened that he couldn't find anything. The scratching grew louder and louder.
Tailypo, Tailypo, give me back my Tailypo.
Jake yelled back, "Leave me alone. I ain't got your Tailypo." Then he called his dogs, but this time the dogs didn't come. He waited and waited, but still not one single dog came running. Jake had never been so scared in his life. He ran to his bed and jumped in, scratching. The voice grew louder.
Tailypo, Tailypo, give me back my Tailypo.
Jake yelled back as loud as he could, "I ain't got your Tailypo. No Tailypo. So why don't you leave me alone and go on about your business? I ain't never hurt nobody or nothing. Just leave me alone." The scratching seemed to be inside the house now, and the voice was so loud it was deafening.
Tailypo, Tailypo, you took my Tailypo. I need to get it. Give it to me now.
Jake pulled the cover up over his head and stayed quiet as he could. The scratching was down his room. "Tailypo, Tailypo, give me back my Tailypo." Jake then felt the thing scratching at the bottom of the bed and onto the cover. Jake eased the cover down just to see what was going on. Then he saw it, a short, stubby creature with pointed ears, fat feet, 2 long claws. Bloodshot red eyes that glowed in the dark. Eyes seemed to burn straight through Jake. Before he could pull out the cover, it was over. The thing pounced on his chest, looked straight down at him.
You got my Tailypo, but give it to me now.
Jake yelled, "I ate it! I ate your Tailypo, it's gone!" Then the thing started to scratch and claw and tear away at poor old Jake, trying to get the Tailypo back. Jake tried to fight back. That thing was too strong. The claws were too sharp. Jake's screams echoed through the night, throughout the dark mountains. As his screams grew violent and shouted, all shouted, but it was still short, for it all happened in the blink of an eye. Then the shouting stopped, leaving a chilling silence. After a month or two, without hearing from old Jake, the townspeople got worried, came looking for him. They hiked up the mountain, through the forest, but when they reached his cabin, they found it had been torn to shreds. There was no sign of Jake or the dogs. They searched the woods, called out to them, "Jake, I know, you know, Calico." There was no answer. Old Jake and his dogs were never seen again. Town people say that if you were all alone there at night and you listened carefully, you could hear a strange voice calling on the wind, "Tailypo, Tailypo, now I've got my Tailypo." And that, campers, is the story of Old Man Jake and his dogs. They were never seen again. Jake was presumably, obviously, torn to shreds, and the creature got his Tailypo, ripped straight from the stomach of Old Man Jake. But even then, as we could see with the description of the creature, it still matches what people typically say. But that all, again, depends on the storyteller or the story that you're reading it from. There's many depictions of it, especially throughout North America. Sometimes it's said to have tufted ears like a bobcat, It's known as nocturnal, covered in dark fur to blend in with the environment. Attacks at night is depicted in the story. But again, it's an animal, not a demon or a spirit or some other entity like that. It's just a straight animal. But that's the story, guys. I hope you enjoyed this cryptid review and storytelling of Tailypo. I'll see you guys in the next video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff. See you in the next one, campers. Bye.